welcome to the Rooted Together podcast, the podcast which aims to root you in Christ through his word together. I'm your host, Charles, and today we are in Genesis chapter 23. Welcome to 2026. We're back in Genesis trying to finish it up this year. Thank you, as always, for listening, and if this has benefited you in any way, please share it with a friend. Now, as we dive into Genesis 23, it's one of those chapters you might read and go, I don't know what to do with this. And that's primarily because it's about Abraham's wife, Sarah. She dies, and he's trying to bury her. And that's the chapter. That's what's in the text. And it's easy to read over that and to go, okay, great, I don't need this information. It's just background information. And in doing so, we miss something more. We miss God's provision and often our reluctance to accept it. So, as I said before, Abraham's wife, Sarah, she's died, and he still has no true home yet. He's sojourning in the land. And the question becomes, where will he bury his dead, and where will he be buried? Because where you bury your dead, it's important because it's connected to home, it's connected to family, it's connected to where will your descendants come back to remember you by? Because those things were important. They're still important today in a lot of ways, but they were particularly important back then, and that's why as we get through Genesis, when they left in Exodus, when they left Egypt, they took Joseph's bones with them. I mean, you think, why would you do that? Well, they were moving their ancestors, and that was important to them. And so Abraham's looking for a place to bury his wife. He needs that sense of home, history, and belonging. And God has, and the question becomes, has God led him to a foreign land just to abandon him at the end of his life? Or the better question here is, would Abraham accept God's provision? Because that's exactly what happens. So as we dive into the text, there's this repetition throughout this chapter where the Hittites, the people he's living among, are trying to give Abraham a tomb for Sarah. Like they're like, here, take this land. You've been sojourning with you. We respect the God that you worship. He's mighty and he's powerful. And we want to just, here, take this plot of land. And Abraham repeatedly says, no, I can't do that. And it's God trying to provide through the Hittites and Abraham's reluctance to accept it. That's that classic Abraham. I got to figure out how to do this on my own. And that's the back and forth of this chapter. This was out of the Hittites. They're giving out of land was out of reverence for God, the God of Abraham. This back and forth, however, it kind of throws the Hittites' generosity against Abraham's trying to provide for himself. And the question is, would Abraham allow God to provide, or would Abraham try to provide? Well, at the end of the chapter, Abraham makes a deal to buy the land to bury his wife. But I want to jump into a few of these verses to just kind of piece this together. You see, it says in verse 5, the Hittites replied to Abraham, listen to us, my Lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in our finest burial place. None of us will withhold from you his burial place for burying your dead. So this is the Hittites coming to Abraham. Hey, we know that you're an alien residing among us, but we want to give you not just a place to bury your dead, but the finest place. Like, we're not going to withhold any place. You pick the premium spot. It's yours, Abraham. And you would think Abraham would have responded with, wow, this is God's provision. What a blessing. But in verse 7, that's the opposite of what happens. As I said earlier, this is back and forth. Then Abraham rose and bowed down to the Hittites, the people of the land, the people where he's living among. And he said to them, if you are willing for me to bury my dead, listen to me, ask Ephron, son of H.E.A.R, on my behalf, to give me the cave of Machpelah that belongs to him. It is at the end of his field, and let him give it to me in your presence for the full price as burial property. So Abraham's response is, okay, but here's the deal. I'll accept your offer, but I'm going to pay full price for it. Verse 10, here's the back and forth. Ephron was sitting among the Hittites. So in the hearing of all the Hittites who came to the gate of his city is where the conversation is happening. Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham, "No, my lord, listen to me." Verse 11, "I give you the field. I give you the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the sight of my people. Bury your dead." He's like, I reject your offer to buy it. I'm going to give it to you for free. Verse 12, again, you would think this would be Abraham going, wow, that's the second time they've offered for me to pick a burial place at no expense, God's provision. But no, Abraham has to provide for himself, at least in his own mind. So verse 12, Abraham bowed down to the people of the land, again, showing reverence, and said to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, "Listen to me, if you please. Let me pay the price of the field. Accept it from me, and let me bury my dead there." Again, Abraham going, I will provide my means to this burial plot. And again in verse 14, Ephraim answers him and says, "My lord, listen to me. Land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is it between you and me? It's not a big deal. Just bury your dead. You don't need to pay for it." But Abraham in verse 16 agrees with Ephron, and I don't think Ephron meant this, but he's like, "Look, it's like 400 shekels of silver. It's nothing between us. You don't need to buy it." But Abraham's like, "All right, I hear you. I got 400 shekels of silver," and so he buys it. And so they agree to that, and so he buys the field and buries his dead, and we are left going, "What did I just read?" It's a back and forth negotiation, but why do we need that for our lives today? And again, it's because it's that question of, will Abraham accept God's provision, or will he continue in that pattern of trying to provide for himself? And we see throughout this chapter, he is fighting God's grace and blessing and provision. And he wants to do it himself. He's done this throughout his life. He's done this throughout chapters 12 all the way into chapter 23. He's tried to do it himself, and it's landed him in hot water many times. Twice he tried to tell kings that he was sojourning with that, "Oh, that's not my wife, that's my sister, please don't kill me." Only to have her returned and going, "What did you do to me? Because you told me this, and that was a lie." God promises a son, so there's Hagar, and that produces Ishmael, and that produces hardship for Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, and Ishmael. There's tension and brokenness in that relationship. And again and again and again, there's this pattern of Abraham trying to provide for himself. And here again, at the end of Sarah's life, he's doing it yet again, trying to negotiate where to bury his dead. So what is our takeaway? Well, we often try to make our own way instead of trusting in God. And that's just innate to us. Like, we want to do it ourselves, especially if you're an American. We have this can-do attitude, have to provide for myself, pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. And in some ways, that's not a bad thing, right? You want to be a hard worker. You want to provide for your family. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we need to understand, if God is blessing us with his grace and his provision, we need to accept that. We don't have to fight that. And I know, as someone who had to raise support to be a missionary, that is difficult. It's difficult to ask people to donate of their hard earnings to provide for you to be able to move overseas and to share the gospel, because there's that thing inside my head, I have to earn this. I have to earn the money. I can't just ask for it. And yet, that is God's provision and his grace and his blessing so that I can be here working with local churches. And so that is in my life, that's how it connects. And in your life, there's other ways where God is trying to provide, God is trying to bless you, God is displaying his grace upon you. Maybe he's providing grace. Maybe you've sinned and you've asked forgiveness and his grace is upon you, but you keep thinking, I have to provide the means to my grace. I have to earn his grace. I have to earn his favor back. And God is saying, no, the favor has already been given to you. The blood of Christ has covered your sin, and you're fighting against God, trying to earn his forgiveness. Brothers and sisters, we cannot earn the forgiveness of God. He has provided it willingly, lovingly, and lavishingly. So are we trusting God? Or are we trying to do it ourselves? And sometimes when God provides through his people, and other times he provides through others as well. So he provides through his people, the church, but he also provides through outsiders. Like in this story, the Hittites aren't insiders, they're outsiders. But they respect Abraham's God because they see his power. And so they're willing to be a vessel of provision for Abraham. And sometimes God does that. He works through people outside the church to provide grace, mercy, blessing in whatever capacity that is. And sometimes he even works through others that aren't his at all, that might even be enemies. I think of Cyrus, who acts as a vessel of God to let the people return to Jerusalem. Sometimes God works in ways we can't comprehend. And the question is, are we going to fight it? Or are we going to try to do it ourselves? Or are we going to rely on the power, the strength, and the sovereignty of God to carry out his mission? And that's especially true when you're working in the gospel work. And by the way, that's every member of the church, not just the clergy. Every member is in the kingdom work of bringing the gospel to the nations, whether that be across the street or across the world. You are invested in bringing the gospel to the people around you. Are you going to rely on God's power and his sovereignty to do that? Or are you going to try to do it in your own strength? Take that from this chapter. And as you do, rely and rest in the love of God. Well, thank you for listening to the Rooted Together podcast. I just want to thank you for being a part of the Rooted Together family. And I thank you as we enter into this new year that God would guide us through the book of Genesis and beyond. And if this has blessed you in any way, please like it, comment on it, rate it, review it, share it. And I'll see you